Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here on the Cover One YouTube channel or subsequently wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined this and every week by Cover One features writer Rob Quinn. And today we are going to talk about the Buffalo Bills 40-0 Week 4 smattering of the Houston Texans. Wasn't much of a game, wasn't supposed to be much of a game, and they took care of business. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about our takeaways from the game. We'll talk about what went right, what went wrong. We'll do a little brief preview of the Kansas City Chiefs game. By brief, I mean like maybe half the show. I don't know. It really is going to depend on how much we have to say about this Houston game because let's be honest, everything has to be taken with a grain of salt regarding the Houston Texans, especially an elite team's performance against the Houston Texans. So we'll discuss that. And then also we'll finish off with some hot takes. And Kyle's hot take is going to be extra spicy as it is each and every week. So, again, I am getting better and quicker at the intro every week. I shouldn't say better. I should say quicker and more succinct. It's getting done quicker, and I'm getting all the information out there. So, Rob, thank you for joining me this week. How are you?
I'm good, man. Coming off a huge win. Looking ahead to the Chiefs game, so it should be a good show to talk about everything that's been going on with the Bills thus far.
It should be. So we have two fun things to do as we kick off the show here. One is something we do every week, and that's give a shout out to our sponsor. Rob will do that momentarily. Something else Rob will do momentarily is announce the winner of his T-shirt contest. Not wet T-shirt contest, just T-shirt contest. Rob was giving away a Cover One T-shirt on Twitter this week. All you had to do was retweet the tweet and subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel in order to enter. And if you did that, you got entered to win a free T-shirt, and we will announce the winner of that giveaway here momentarily. But before we do that, Rob, can you tell us a little bit about Underdog Fantasy, which sponsors Cover One in general and this particular podcast?
Of course, so Underdog Fantasy is an awesome fantasy sports app. You can play daily fantasy. They have best ball drafts, and for those that missed out before the season started, they have some mid-season best ball drafts. My favorite thing to do with the app is the player props. They have a lot of over-unders. I actually hit on one this weekend.
Hey.
So I'm fine. Week 4. We're starting to roll here, but yeah, so Underdog, if you use the promo code COVER1, you get a free $25 with a deposit of $25. So hopefully you get off to a better start with your games than I did, but get that free $25 by using the code COVER1 at Underdog Fantasy.
That is promo code COVER1. Now, the moment everyone has been waiting for one moment. We are announcing the winner of the T-shirt giveaway. Rob, I'm giving you the drum roll, and you are going to announce the winner. I can't do it. I can't keep reading. Who is it?
It is Don Keith. So, Don, DM us, get your address and the size, and we will get it sent over to you. Thank you for being a loyal subscriber. We see you in the chat all the time, and we just appreciate you and all of our other listeners who have stuck with us through these 11 weeks now that we've been going here at Cover One Roundup.
Yes, Don Keith is in the chat each and every week, and we appreciate that, and we also appreciate everyone who listens to this podcast each and every week. So, yes, well-deserved, Don. Thank you, Gregory. Gregory Thompson. I don't know why I called him Gregory. Let's get W's in the chat for Don, okay? Let's get some dubs in the chat. Okay, speaking of dubs in the chat, the Buffalo Bills completely dominated the Houston Texans this week. And before we get into takeaways, as we do each and every week, I think we should just give like our overarching thoughts on this week's game. It was never really close. Like at times it looked like, I was never scared on behalf of the Bills, but there were times when I was like, this doesn't look like it's going to go as I think it's going to go. The defense looked strong out of the gate, and then Josh Allen threw an interception. Actually, I shouldn't say threw an interception. He just was playing catch with the Houston safety. Perhaps he thought they were wearing whites at home yesterday. So, but then he threw the interception, made a mental note like, nope, okay, we're in the Blues this week, and corrected it. And he was good from there on out, because maybe that's what it was, because he did make a few other errant throws, a few other mistakes, you could say, but largely he was very good to finish out the game. finish out the game from the second drive on. Neither of us have this guy in our takeaway, but we have to talk about him. We'd be remiss not to mention him. I don't know what that word means, but it sounded good there. Dawson Knox has just been on fire to start this season. One of the better tight ends in the league, I would say. Had 5 receptions for 37 yards and 2 scores yesterday. Has 4 receiving touchdowns through the first 4 games of the season. That is tied for most among tight ends. With Rob Gronkowski, he also has 4. And also with 4 receiving tight ends, he is tied for second in the league in touchdowns, receiving touchdowns through 4 games. So that's very good from Dawson Knox, a player that many people wanted to see take a leap this year. And he has thus far looking like a tight end, looking like a reliable pass catching option, which is something that he hasn't been. He was a fun player before. Now he's a good player. What else? What other things can we talk about before we dive into more specifics here?
I think we're going to cover it all in the show, man. I mean, there really wasn't so every week we do the what went right and what went wrong. And I think we only have one thing that really went wrong in this game, if you want to take away that Josh Allen for getting the uniform colors. But yeah, it was an overall just outstanding game for the Buffalo Bills yesterday. And Dawson Knox, I think we need to talk about him a little bit because like we talked about him last week and just the development that he's shown this season, putting it all together and being an all-around complete tight end that can be relied upon in this offense is so huge. Like you talk about Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley, but now you have a tight end that could really work the middle of the field, but not only in those traditional seam routes that you see from tight ends, but he could split out wide. He lines up in the backfield. He does so much for this offense. And with him, with those drops in the past, and his ability to kind of get open and understand the nuances of the position now in his third year is just incredible to see. And he's in for a big year. I think he already has half the yards that he posted last year. He had 288. I think now he has 144. So it's awesome to see him put it all together. And the offense is really benefiting from his presence.
Josh Allen said that Dawson Knox does everything right, does the little things right during the week, which is also what he said about Emmanuel Sanders last week. So either that's a cliche or the Bills have a lot of players who do everything right. I don't know which to believe there. I don't know if Josh Allen's just spitting cliches. Not a football player talking in cliches. It couldn't be. But yes, I agree that we should just get into the specifics of the game, our takeaways. Your first takeaway is a little more overarching, whereas mine is more specific. So I'll start with you. What is your first takeaway from this Buffalo Bills 40-0 win?
So my first takeaway is that the Bills defense has just been incredible. And against the Houston Texans, they performed as they needed to. Against a team like that's really the laughing stock of the league at this point, you need to show up and you need to shut them down. And that's exactly what the Buffalo Bills did. We all remember the Nathan Peterman against the San Diego Chargers game. And that's basically what they did to pour Davis Mills under center for the Texans, holding him to, I think it was like 87 yards, intercepted him 4 times. They had 5 total turnovers. The defense was just lights out. And then you look at what they've been able to do as a whole for the season. They're first in points allowed. They're first in yards allowed. They have the most turnovers forced in the NFL. The fewest first downs allowed, the fewest passing yards allowed, the fewest yards per attempt. They're 4th in run defense. Their pass rush has been incredible, mainly with that Dolphins game, but they've gotten some juice elsewhere as well. I think they're 3rd in hurries. They're 6th in sacks, 2nd in pressures. Just if you look at the defensive statistics for the team rankings, they are in the top 5 in just about everything. So this defense is incredible. And coming up with a huge game against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, they'll really be put to the test. But I think that this is a different team than we saw a year ago. They're more aggressive. They're more confident. And having Star Lotulelei in the middle looking like a completely different player. I know you'll talk about him shortly. But this defense is firing on all cylinders, and it's not just the starters, but it's the backups as well. We saw that in the fourth quarter, the backups played, but they have key reserves at key positions that are having huge impacts on this team. So overall, that was my main takeaway from the game, is just that the defense is on fire.
Yeah, the defense has been incredible through the last 3 games. Even the first game as well. They just kind of couldn't hold on through the entire game in the first game, which when the offense doesn't play that well, or when the offense plays the way that it did in week 1, you really can't count on the defense to carry them to victory. But the defense has been lights out through the last 3 games. Like you said, have allowed 21 points through the last 3 games, all of those points coming in one game, have had shutouts in 2 out of the last 3. They've had multiple takeaways in their last 3 games. I think that was something that they focused on. I think Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, after the Steelers loss, came out and said, if we want to win, we're going to need takeaways. We're going to need to generate takeaways, going to need to get the ball back for the offense, which is what they've done numerous times per game the last 3 games. Like you said, first against the pass, 4th against the rush, first in points allowed. If they are not the best defense in the league right now, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better one right now. To point at a better one and objectively say, yes, they are the better unit, top to bottom. Now, you could play devil's advocate and say, like, they're not playing the best competition. They're playing the Jacoby Brissett Dolphins and the Taylor Heineke football team. There we go. And also the Davis Mills Texans. But even if it was the Tyrod Taylor Texans, I don't know if he would have put up much of a fight. As I wrote on the sign this week, Tyrod would have made it 40-7, which is true. Wouldn't have been a shutout if Tyrod played. I will stand by that. But again, so to play devil's advocate, they're not playing the best competition, but they're playing the games on their schedule. And they are taking care. Not only are they taking care of these teams and playing exceptionally well against these teams, they're looking better than expected against these teams. Against these less than ideal offenses, the defense is shutting them down. In 2 cases, shutting them out completely. So,
right. I forget who it was in the Slack channel that said it, but they said something to the effect of, like, this is like a premier FBS school that's now going into their conference games after, like, just washing their opponents. But that's what you need to do. They've got the style points with the wins against inferior competition that you need to see if you want to solidify yourself as an elite team. And now they get to go and prove themselves against the Chiefs. So I completely agree with what you said. They haven't really played any really elite quarterbacks, but when they have, they've taken care of business. So.
Oh, right. That's a really good analogy. I think I'm going to move into my takeaway now, which is also on the defense. We're going to focus in on a position group and a group within that group. The interior defensive line was very noticeable yesterday against the pass and the run. Against the run, they allowed only 48 net yards. Now, obviously, that is circumstantial, but still impressive. The Texans got down early. They were never, as I said, they were never really in the game, but the score didn't really get out of hand until later in the game. They never really abandoned the run entirely. Davis Mills only threw the ball 21 times, but they really didn't have the ball all that much either. But still, 48 rushing net is impressive. Ed Oliver was incredibly impressive against the run. Had 3 stops, I believe, according to PFF. Yes, 3 run stops, one of which was in the first quarter, I believe. He just shot the gap. I don't know what happened, but he met Phillip Lindsay as he was getting the ball and just took him to the turf. Maybe his most impressive play as a professional in 3 seasons, at least sticking out in my head. That's his most impressive play that I can think of. And he was also, again, just the entire line generating pressure. Star Lotulelei, Eric has tweeted about this, a different player, like just a year off, comes back, and he's a player we've never seen before. Slimmer, faster, quicker, can generate pass rush. Had a sack yesterday. Had a sack last week, I believe, but it was like a stupid sack. It was like he just raced Heineke to the sideline and pushed him out, and they counted it as a sack because it was behind the line of scrimmage. This was a big boy sack. This was an actual sack. And then, again, 2 pressures from Star Lotulelei, 2 stops. Harrison Phillips got back in the lineup, had a pressure, and Justin Zimmer also played. So it was a very good game from the interior of the line. Again, just noticeable game from them against the run and just generating pressure up the middle. When you can consistently generate pressure up the middle, you are going to, that bodes well for your chances as a pass rush and in the game itself, towards victory. So a promising performance, I would say, from the interior of the defensive line.
Yeah, and going into the season, who would have thought Star Lotulelei would be the Bills' probably best and most consistent pass rusher among their interior defensive linemen? Like, this guy is just a completely different player. He looks slimmer and faster than he's ever looked, and he's still holding up against the run. He's still that dominant presence at the nose that we all knew he would be this season. But his ability to not only push the pocket, but to really just destroy guards and get into the backfield in the passing game is something that I've never seen from him. And I don't think the Bills coaches anticipated that either. But the year that he took off last season, opting out due to COVID, it allowed him to do something where he's refreshed and revitalized, and he's a huge playmaker for this defense now. And like you said, Ed Oliver playing against Houston, where he went to college, this was his best game, I think, since that Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys. I'd like to see him have these games against teams that aren't from Texas, but that was definitely an awesome performance by Ed in the middle. And just the whole defensive line as a whole, just getting that much pressure allowed Tremaine Edmonds to play downhill and really make an impact as well.
Jeff King, thank you so much for the super chat. I don't by any means think we're going to dominate Kansas City, but I do think we were going to take a punch in the mouth from them. Difference this year, we're going to punch back a lot harder than we have in the past, just to let them know we're not going anywhere. Sorry, I can't read. I haven't gotten a new glasses prescription in like 10 years, which doesn't bode well for me. But aside, thank you, Jeff King. Very much appreciate that super chat.
Thank you, Jeff.
And you for watching. I agree. We'll get into that in the Kansas City preview. Kansas City, this could be a cold take exposed. Someone started screen recording. They look like a beatable team this year.
Mm-hmm. They really do.
Right. They look like a beatable team. We'll get into that later. But just to go back to Star Lotulelei momentarily here, that isn't the player that I think that the Bills coaches thought they were getting back. At least I doubt this is the player who they thought they were getting back, but I'm sure they're not opposed to this being the player that they got back. Just, again, rejuvenated. Probably playing, I don't want to say the best football of his career because I didn't watch him in Carolina. Sorry, sue me. I was a teenager and I didn't care about the Carolina Panthers in 2013. So, and I think his rookie year was his best year as a professional, at least going into this year, at least statistically speaking. So, but just to see Star Lotulelei at least playing his best football as a Bill, coming off an off season or coming off a year in which he took off and an off season in which people were like, is he retired? Is he even coming back? Yeah. And he's going to be very good, actually. It's wild and it's refreshing. And again, as people have pointed out in the chat, the players around him are benefiting from his presence. Ed Oliver's benefiting. The linebackers are benefiting. Tremaine Edmonds made a play yesterday. Rob, got anything to say about that?
Yeah, Tremaine Edmonds balled out yesterday, and I talked about him last week as someone that kind of underwhelmed me, and I think a lot of people took that the wrong way. But he really showed up yesterday against the Texans. He had the interception, which it wasn't an outstanding play that he had to make. He kind of just stepped in front of the receiver and caught it. But he was a force against the run, and he was physical, and you could tell that he was playing with some energy, especially without Matt Milano in the lineup. He needed to be that guy that brought the intensity, and he did. He showed up in coverage. He was outstanding. Allowed, I think, one catch for 4 yards. Had a pass breakup with that interception. But against the run, he's just so consistent and steady this season, and he's filling. He's getting in his gaps, and he's making stuffs at the line of scrimmage, and that's what you want from a middle linebacker. And obviously, it was just the Houston Texans. I feel like we're going to say that about pretty much every player's performance from yesterday, but he played at the level we want to see Tremaine Edmonds play.
Yes, was it a tight end he was on? I don't even remember. He was just whoever he picked off or whoever he stepped in front to get the interception, he was just on him. Good coverage, and ball was thrown to him. Spin 0481 writes, and everyone wants Star gone after this season. See, there's a lot of people who have wanted Star gone for a lot of years because he doesn't put up the stats, because he's never been a stat guy, never been a stat sheet stuffer. But, he's always had a role, and the team has always liked his role. And now, I mean, he's more impactful now than I think he's been. Well, I don't want to say that, but he's more noticeably impactful now that he's been in a long time. And that is showing up on the stat sheet. So is he a fan favorite? Can we say he's the new Kyle Williams?
I don't know about Kyle Williams, but I think a lot of people took notice of him during last season when the Bills' run defense is really struggling. And I think that his presence back and the type of impact that he's made has really been pleasing to fans who were expecting a big year from the defense due to his return.
It's very funny.
Might not go on the Wall of Fame just yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
He's on the Cover One Roundup Wall of Fame for sure.
There you go. We'll put his face right at the bottom there.
Okay. That's what, next week we will have the Wall of Fame somewhere on this thing, and it's just going to be Star Latulele on the Wall of Fame. But it's funny because on one of the podcasts, like shortly before this season, I made a joke. I was like, the Bills didn't do anything to fix their run defense. All they did was say, "Oh, Star's back," and that fixed the run defense.
Right.
It actually worked. They're incredible against the run. Again, 48 rushing net yards in the rain yesterday, in torrential downpours, a game where you should run the ball. They limited the Houston Texans to 48 rushing net yards. Very good game from the interior defensive line and the defense as a whole. But I think we are going to jump over to the offensive side of the ball right now. Rob, what is your second takeaway?
My second takeaway is that even against the Houston Texans, Josh Allen is dealing. He has found his rhythm outside of that first play of the game where he just kind of said, "I'm going to let you think you're in it, Houston, and then I'm going to rip your throat out." Is going 20 of 29 for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns. With that interception, he had another 41 yards on the ground. He is just playing on another level since those first 2 games, man. And you can say what you want about the defenses that he's faced, but he just looks like a different quarterback. He's manipulating the pocket when pressure's in his face. He's escaping. He's making throws on the run. He's pushing the ball downfield. He's putting great touch on his passes. Speaking of pushing the ball down the field, he was 8 of 12 on passes, 10+ yards downfield for 185 yards and a touchdown. He was only pressured 8 times. I think he completed 7 of those passes. He just was on fire yesterday. And like I said, it was the Houston Texans, but he has another favorable opponent next week with the Chiefs, a defense that's really regressed from last season. Mm-hmm. And I think this game is going to be a shootout. I know a lot of people are already predicting a lower scoring slugfest, but I don't think so. I think this is going to be a game that's like 37-34 type of game where Allen and Mahomes are just slinging it. So I think Allen has found his groove, and this is the player we need to see going into this Sunday.
That's what I wanted out of last year's Bills Chiefs game in the regular season one. But the rain, again, the rain. I'm going to drop a diss track on the rain in a couple of minutes. A proverbial diss track with actual words with no beat. So I'm going to rant about the rain is what I'm trying to say. But yes, Josh Allen has been incredible these last 2 games. 20 of 29 for 248, 2 touchdowns and a pick yesterday. The pick was bad, but we talked about that. We already gave a reason for it. He thought they were wearing white yesterday because they sometimes do that. Sometimes they wear white at home. He just didn't know. So we explained that away. But again, wasn't a good pick. Had a few like weird plays. He had one where he threw the ball into the end zone. I think he was targeting Gabe Davis, and it was a ball that, I mean, who am I to say this? Who am I to tell Josh Allen how to play quarterback? But it was a ball that like he probably should have put more torque into, probably should have thrown it harder. He just kind of lofted it and almost got picked off. But other than that, he was very good. Had a few just jaw-dropping throws. He had one to Diggs. It was early on. I want to say it was maybe the first quarter, maybe the second quarter, where he rolled out and just, found Diggs along the sideline 30 yards down the field. That's an incredible throw. Had a couple nice throws to Sanders. Had a few nice plays on the ground. He had a play. It was a 4th and 1, I believe, and he went for a quarterback sneak. And he did someone just call Aaron your brother? That's funny. Had a quarterback sneak where it turned into a quarterback draw, which again, just instinctual player. Really good stuff from Josh Allen yesterday. But I don't know how many times we have to say this. It was the Houston defense. and like last week, it was against the Washington football team defense, which I thought was going to be a very good unit entering this season. Thus far haven't been what they've been, supposed to be. And yesterday it was against the Houston defense. But regardless, it was an incredible. It's been 2 consecutive incredible performances from Josh Allen. 20 of 29 in a torrential downpour is nothing to scoff at, regardless of the defense he was playing. That's impressive to go 20 of 29 for 248 in a game where, like, you would expect it to be a run-focused attack because of the rain. Josh Allen didn't really shy away from throwing it and was very successful while throwing it. So does that wrap up Josh Allen talk?
I think so.
Y'all look alike. Do you and Aaron, now that I'm looking at it, maybe a little bit. Maybe
Aaron's my beautiful, bald, long-lost brother.
Is he the better-looking brother?
He is the better-looking brother.
You guys have said for years, like, we're not related. Like, no, we're actually not related, but you're just both going to be at a family reunion one day, and you're going to be like,
One
oh
day.
my God, we've lied. We've lied to everyone for years. And that'll be a good day. It needs to be documented. So my second takeaway, for the fifth time of this podcast, I will say, everything that is to be said about this game, whether it be positive or negative, in favor of the Bills or against them, there aren't many things to say against them. But regardless, it has to be taken with a grain of salt, given the expansion team caliber opponent that they faced and the conditions under which or in which the game was played. Just not favorable conditions for any team. Not probably just a miserable day to be outside. That's why I stayed inside all day. Certainly was not going to that football game. But that leads me to my second takeaway, which is build a dome. Terry and Kim Pegula, I know you're watching this. I know you love the Cover One Roundup. You're in my DMs all the time saying, I love this show, but you need to stop being so negative about Josh Allen. They're just commenters. That's all they are. But if you're watching this, build a dome. I understand it'll cost like what, a few extra 100,000, maybe a few million extra dollars to build a dome. I don't know. I'm not an architect, but like yesterday was a just overall miserable experience to watch on TV. I can't imagine being there for the game or watching the game. Again, 68 degrees, which all things considered for Buffalo isn't a bad like day. It's like 1 degree off of being a very nice temperature outside, but it was just pouring. It was disgusting outside. Just people trash on Buffalo weather, and people are like, "Oh, but it doesn't snow that much, or it snows, but like not that often during game days." Well, it's like yes, but also like you get games like this in October. You had another one last year against the Chiefs where it just rained all day, and it was disgusting. Just a miserable experience. If you guys went to see another comment, come on, Kyle, it doesn't even snow yet. Yes, very true. But what am I saying? Oh, yes, build a dome. It was, again, just a miserable viewing experience, and I can't imagine if anybody in the chat was at the game, tell me, was it miserable? Were you having a bad time at the game, in the cold, in a poncho? 40 million more for a dome. It's not my 40 million, not directly at least. So spend it. Spend it for a dome, because who do the elements benefit, Rob? I hear people say, like, we need an open-aired stadium in Buffalo because the elements benefit the Bills. Like, the rain wasn't bad yesterday. It didn't impact the Bills negatively, but I don't think it helped them either. Like, it was just kind of an element in the game that made Houston bad and the Bills, like, fine. It really didn't benefit them. And if, like, that's the argument, just like, oh, it's going to make the Bills not that bad while it makes the other team bad. It's like, okay, but I'd rather enjoy watching the football game, or I'd rather not get freezing and wet while sitting in the stands watching the game to have a dome. Which this could all be for naught, because from what I understand, the stadium proposal has like the Seattle style coverings over the fans. So maybe that's the best of both worlds, right? You get the elements on the field and the fans stay dry, which is all well and good. So maybe this is just me ranting about nothing. But again, the rain made the game just disgusting to watch. I can't imagine what it would have been like to been there or to be there. But what do you think about the elements?
Yeah, I remember I went to a Bills game. I think it was against the Bengals a few years ago when I lived up there, and it was like late in the season, but it was raining. It wasn't snowing yet, but it was raining and it was cold and it was miserable. And I had an awful experience there. And I know there's two sides to the coin, right? Like those games on TV, like that snow game that the Bills played that one year against Indianapolis. Like those are awesome looking back at the video of that game. But then you remember actually watching that game, and it was terrible. And I think that the Bills, obviously there's something to be said about like going to Buffalo and playing in those cold elements, but I don't really think the players like it that much. I mean, a lot of these guys are from Florida and California.
Right, the players aren't from
Texas.
Buffalo, so the element, like,
the elements don't help them. I mean, they live there, but it's only a few months. It's not like they're conditioned to play in this weather, like they've been growing up there playing it forever. But I mean, it's cool. It's something about the city. I know that people appreciate that blue collar, cold weather, those games that have history behind them with the franchise. But also, like you said, for the experience of most fans, they don't want to sit in a torrential downpour for 3 hours and watch a football game. So, I mean, I would prefer that they get a dome just for the viewing experience at home. But then obviously there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I don't really know, but I think that you got to get a dome in Buffalo, New York. It just
makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of logical if you think about it. I will say this. I've been to numerous Bills games in my life. Probably not as many as a lot of people in the chat, but I've been to a handful. Elliot Eisler writes, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. You haven't seen rain until you've experienced Florida rain.
Ain't that the truth?
That's a you
Ain't
comment.
that the truth?
But I have been to more Bills games as press than I have as a fan or just as a spectator. I will say I enjoyed going as press vastly more than I did as a spectator because you're covered. You have a roof. You're inside where it's not cold. You look outside and you see cold people and you're like, oh, thank God I am, heated and drinking a coffee. I just sound like a dick right now. The people are going to hate me for this, but at the games I've gone to as a spectator, when it is cold, like you said, I'm miserable. When it's raining, I'm like, this sucks. This is awful. Wouldn't it be nice if there were a roof? But again, it's expensive. I understand why they don't. But like the elements argument, I never understand because when the Bills play in the snow, it is probably the first time that like half of the players on the team are also playing in the snow. Like it's just they don't get enough snow games.
And obviously the stadium is something that's going to last for 50, 60 years. But if you get a stadium in the next 2-3 years, you want Josh Allen playing your franchise quarterback you're paying $258 million to be throwing it through rain and snow in the winter. No, I want ideal conditions for him to throw for 450 yards in those games. So get a dome.
Hey, you heard it from us. Okay. Mr. Diggs, right? We already hate you, Kyle. Very true. Very true. I am the Bills. I am the People's Bills podcaster, as evidenced. If I didn't slur my words with that coming out, that would have been a 6 out of 10 maybe comment, but it's like a 3 out of 10 with me stuttering throughout the entire way. Where I saw a comment up here from Roman. Roman, you're gonna love my hot take later. Kyle sounds like he's from California. I don't know if that's an insult or a compliment, but we're gonna take it and move on. So I think that wraps up the takeaway segment. Build a dome for the benefit of me and me only. We'll even design it. Pagulas, get in our DMs. We will design you the stadium. We know what we're doing. I said earlier that I'm not an architect, but I've seen enough stadiums on TV.
I've made a stadium on Madden 2005 before. We're good.
Exactly. Did you put a roof on it?
A retractable. Gotta get retractable.
That's all you need. Look, that's all the experience you need. Roman confirms it's an insult. Thank you, Roman. Thank you so much. Moving on. We're moving.
In other news, what went right, Kyle?
What went right and what went wrong? This is the segment where we talk about what went right and what went wrong. So, what went right? I will kick it off here. I will say the run game went right. The Buffalo Bills had a rushing net of 199 yards. Now, Rob, I did some digging today. I did some research. As the People's Bills podcaster, you expect nothing but in-depth analysis and research from me. So that's how I spent my afternoon, was looking up this particular stat. 199 rushing net yards is higher than any rushing net they've had since 2019. Since week 12 of 2019, they had 200 and I can't read my own handwriting. 244 rushing net yards against the Denver Broncos in week 12 of the 2019 season. Frank Gore had 65 rushing net yards. So the last time the Bills had as good of a game on the ground as they had yesterday was when Frank Gore was on the team. Frank Gore is not even in the league anymore. Do you know how long ago that was? Or if we're talking about Frank Gore not being in, this is his first year not in the league, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but he was in the league for a long time. But it is sad. It is sad that he's moved on. I don't think by choice, but with, again, just Singletary and Moss combined for 28 carries. Singletary had 79 yards. Moss had 61. Both looked very good yesterday, I will say. I think Singletary, I was kind of down on him last week. I said that he went wrong because, again, it was a game where really nothing else went wrong. And comparatively, at least compared to Moss, he didn't have as strong of a game. But yesterday, I thought he looked really good. Found the holes, was hitting the holes. I thought he got stronger as the game went on, which you would typically expect from Zach Moss. But I think Singletary, gun to my head, I think Singletary had a better game. But both of them played very well. They were changing in on every series. Like Singletary had one, then Moss had one, then Singletary, etc. And I think, they said it on the broadcast, it was because they wanted to roll with the hot hand. They wanted one of them to find a rhythm, establish themselves, and then he would be the guy going forward. But they were both the hot hand. They both found success. They both were really good. So they just rotated them in and out throughout the entire game, which again is why they both had 14 carries. So what was exciting to me about this performance from the rushing attack, Singletary and Moss, is that potentially, if the Bills choose to, they can have a very dangerous and fun rushing attack. Not just with Singletary and Moss, but if you factor Allen into that, what he can do athletically, what he can do as a runner and on the ground, that is a potential three-headed monster. Like in games where Allen just really doesn't have it through the air, which we've seen once or twice this year already, and we've seen it in the past. Hopefully we don't see it anymore, but if we do, they can have a three-headed monster on the ground with Allen, Singletary, and Moss. Just to go off that, Singletary and Moss really don't strike fear into the hearts of other teams by themselves. Like I'm sure Kansas City's not looking at the Bills depth chart right now and being like, oh, Singletary and Moss, this is a scary day for us. Factor Allen into that, and it's like, oh, we should be concerned about the ground. We should be concerned about what they can do on the ground. So again, their best rushing performance since 2019 did not surpass didn't even eclipse 200 rushing net yards last year, nearly do it yesterday. And it's good that they are establishing the ground game, which we said that they should do earlier in the season. Of course, they established the ground game in a game where it is torrential downpouring, and they probably should establish the ground game, and they do. And the offense finds success as a result.
Yeah, the Bills' run game has been really surprising in the last 3 weeks, and their commitment to running the ball was something that we talked about after week one, losing to the Steelers when they threw 51 times and kind of got away from the run in a one-score game. So the last 3 games to see the success they had, and especially yesterday, getting 199 yards with 2 kneel downs, so they should have had over 200. But Singletary looked great. However, he needs to keep the ball in his hands and not fumble it. I think this was his 4th fumble on the season, which is not good. And Sean McDermott sat him down, I think, for 2 drives, putting Zach Moss back in the game because of it. Right after that fumble, he didn't come back in until all the backups were in. So as explosive as he's looked and as impressive as he's been, he needs to work on that ball security, because I don't think he's lost any of those fumbles yet, but putting the ball on the ground 4 times, eventually, if you do it 1 or 2 more times, it's not going to end well for the Bills offense, and the other team's going to get the ball probably with some good field position. But Zach Moss as well, I really, really like what I've seen from him this year. Just the powerful downhill runner that's not getting stopped at the line of scrimmage. He's not taking losses. They're really running the ball well. And like you said, Josh Allen is going to give you those 40 yards a game on the ground as well. That fake QB sneak was just awesome to see. And then he dragged the linebacker down with him, just physical.
Bulldogged him. It was crazy, WWE style.
Yeah, but against the Chiefs, I'm really interested to see how committed they stay, because the Chiefs are such an explosive offense that say that they get a big play or two and get up early. Are the Bills just going to abandon the run and just air it out like we've seen them do in the past when they get down? I think against the Chiefs and an offense like that, you need to keep the offense on the field and stay balanced. You have Josh Allen. He can air it out. He's been good. But you have to lean on Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, because they've been so efficient with the ball. They're getting you those big yards. And the Chiefs have proven that they're susceptible to good rushing offenses. The Browns, I think, ran for almost 200 yards on them and 4 touchdowns. The Ravens gashed them. The Eagles with Jalen Hurts ran almost at will with them. I think they had over 100 yards. So I think this is a game coming up that they really need to lean on the rushing attack to kind of control the game, because both of the games that they had last year against Kansas City, abandoning the run, I think, is what led them astray, and it ultimately resulted in them losing.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kansas City is probably expecting them to air it out, just because I think that's what everyone expects Buffalo to do, is air it out when you have Josh Allen and when they are as committed to the pass as they typically are. I think Kansas City is going in expecting to game plan around Josh Allen and what he can do through the air. So at least for a drive or two, I think they should commit to the ground. Just keep the Kansas City offense off the field and just see what you can do with Singletary and Moss and Allen as a rusher. I mean, again, Brian Dable, Pagulas, I know you're watching this podcast. Text Brian Dable, say, run the ball first 2 series. That's what Kyle says to do. So lock it in. So, Rob, pivoting over to you, what do you think went right in this wonderful game?
I think you have to look at Spencer Brown and his debut as a starter as an incredible positive takeaway from that game. The move it all started with John Feliciano missing the game with an injury. Ike Butker filled in at left guard for him, but then the team benched Cody Ford, as we talked about last week, that he was struggling a lot. Outside of that Lions preseason game, he just wasn't getting it done. The Bills decided to give their rookie 3rd-round draft pick Spencer Brown the starting nod at right tackle and kick in Daryl Williams to guard. Daryl Williams didn't have a lot of success in Carolina when in the limited time that he played inside there, but I think it's a good move, because when you have a player like Spencer Brown, all he's done throughout the preseason and the limited snaps that he's had in the regular season as the tackle eligible and filling in on a snap for Deion Dawkins when he had to step out, he's been impressive, man. And you got to get guys like that on the field. He's clearly one of the best 5 on the offensive line, and he's promising. We talked about his athleticism coming out of the draft and the type of raw prospect he was. And I think we kind of gave him the same treatment that we gave Greg Rousseau. Like, he's not ready yet. He's so long. He's so raw. He needs to work on technique. But then you get him on the field, and he's just a monster. And he plays with that energy too. And he doesn't get too crazy with his technique. He's not lunging. He's just mauling guys in the run game. He's controlling pass rushers in the passing game, and he's not making mistakes. He only gave up 2 hurries. I don't think he had a penalty called. You saw him trash talking out there. It was awesome. He's dancing and making first down signs at a 5-yard gain that wasn't a first down. He's looking over the head of corners. It was just awesome to see. All around, Spencer Brown looked great, and I think the Bills have a steal from the 3rd round. And Sean McDermott said they're keeping the lineup the way it is, and they're rolling into Kansas City with Spencer Brown at right tackle.
Absolutely electric game from Spencer Brown. Electric. Oh, sorry, I just saw a stink bug. There's a stink bug on my desk. Just caught me off guard. That's not a great reaction to have on camera, but that just caught me off guard. It is now crawling on my notebook. Very cool. All right, so I agree that Spencer Brown is probably one of the best 5. At least that's what it looks like through the first, at least through yesterday, or at least yesterday, he looked like one of the best 5. God, Jesus Christ! There we go.
Special guest of the show.
Jeez. Spencer Brown was very good yesterday. I loved his moxie, loved his grit, loved his antics, as you said, just dancing, signaling for first downs on plays that were not first downs, with Desmond King just going like this. Very funny. Speaking about, what's his name? I just said his name, Desmond King. What happened to Desmond King? I mean, he is a guy who years ago, just a couple years ago, was an all-pro, was he not?
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, he's like a trade talk guy, and everyone's like, oh, Desmond King could really help whatever team, not just the Bills, whatever team he goes to. Now he's on Houston. So, like, oh, how the mighty have fallen, right? Goes from all pro to getting dunked on by a guy from Northern Iowa. Just not a great career trajectory there from Desmond King. But Spencer Brown was very good yesterday. 2 pressures allowed. My holdup with Spencer Brown, I'm still thinking about that stink bug. My holdup with Spencer Brown is that if you want to get him on the field, it's going to be at right tackle. And then you still want Daryl Williams on the field. So you're going to play Daryl Williams at guard while keeping Cody Ford on the bench, presumably. But with Daryl Williams, was it not a switch to guard that kind of got him out of favor in Carolina initially? Like, he was a good right tackle, switched inside to guard, and that's where his trajectory started moving downwards. Comes to Buffalo, reunites with McDermott, goes back out to right tackle, and he starts playing well. So Daryl Williams yesterday wasn't bad by any means. 2 pressures allowed. That's a season low from him, actually, in terms of pressures allowed. But I think he had a penalty. I may be wrong. But my only fear with getting Spencer Brown on the field is that it's going to mean Daryl Williams is not as productive playing a guard as he is at tackle. But I mean, if that means it's an upgrade you have to look at it as, is Brown an upgrade over?
You're getting Brown on the field, but more importantly, you're getting Cody Ford off the field. I mean, he's just been dreadful. And I think Daryl Williams, even though he might not, I mean, he's been average at best at right tackle this season. And I think Spencer Brown kind of gave a jolt to that lineup yesterday. And Williams, while he might not be as good of a guard as he is a tackle, I think with the way that he's played at right tackle this season, it doesn't really warrant keeping Spencer Brown on the bench in favor of kicking him inside, where he wasn't that bad, but then again, he didn't really have much competition in a weak Texans defensive line.
Bigfoot anthropologist writes, Williams holding penalty brought back Motors' huge run. Okay, so yes, he did have a penalty. Run. John Herring writes, Williams missed a bunch of assignments. Welp. I like Daryl Williams. The Bills like him, I think, as well. They paid him decent, good value contract. But, I mean, Spencer Brown, at least yesterday, looked like an upgrade. And Daryl Williams at guard is potentially an upgrade over Cody Ford at guard. So we'll see how this goes. I also like the play where Spencer Brown almost forced a fumble on Zach Moss by diving at him and trying to push him forward. That was hilarious. Who would have got credit for the forced fumble there?
I don't know. Probably the closest player.
We'll never know. The world will never know. So I don't think you have a thing that went wrong, though we do have people in the chat talking about the red zone offense. The red zone offense did leave a little bit to be desired. I think they settled for 3 field goals, was it?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
It was a number of field goals for sure. And they are really talking up Tyler Bass. It is strange the amount
4 field goals.
4 field goals. Yeah. It is strange the amount of love Tyler Bass has been getting these past couple of weeks from his teammates, but it's cool. But what do you think the issue is, at least yesterday, with red zone offense in terms of not getting the ball into the end zone?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been an issue a couple times. I've noticed it just seems like when the field is congested that guys just aren't getting open. Maybe this is something that Eric needs to dive into further because he's way smarter than I am and might be able to pinpoint some of those issues. But I don't know if it's an execution or a play design or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I think it's something that will get worked out. But when you have a kicker like Tyler Bass, like Josh Allen said, like you want to get at least a kick on every drive. And that's what they've been doing. And Bass has been money for him in those situations.
Jessica Tennis writes, 4 touchdowns, 4 field goals equals 40. As you can tell, Rob and I, journalism students, not math guys.
Jessica with the calculus going on over there.
That's calculus. That is advanced level mathematics.
Yeah,
right. So moving on to something else that went wrong. Maybe the only thing that went wrong outside of the red zone offense, if you want to talk about that, and the Josh Allen interception, was Matt Milano's hamstring. Something that has gone wrong numerous times before. Matt Milano left the game yesterday after 17 snaps with a hamstring injury. According to Banged Up Bills, I believe this is his 5th documented hamstring injury, which is not good. Yes, he's dealt with a hamstring injury in every season except for 2018, but he was still injured in 2018, had a concussion in the middle of the season, and then he broke his fibula at the end of the season. So he's never missed considerable time with hamstring injuries. I think it's like a game. Each and every time he injures his hamstring, he misses the next game, and then he'll come back. But like, this is a game coming up that you really don't want Matt Milano to miss. He missed the Chiefs game last year, I believe. At least the regular season one. I think he played in the playoffs, but you need arguably your best defensive player for your best or the best team you're playing in the regular season. And I hope that he does play. He is listed as day-to-day by Sean McDermott, but again, Rob, you and I were talking off air. You're not going to list arguably your best defensive player as week to week in the days leading up to your matchup with the Chiefs. You're going to say day to day and make them think, okay, there's a chance he could play. But I mean, if history is any indication, he's always missed a game after hitting or after injuring his hamstring. But I don't know if I'm concerned as much as I am annoyed, just because Matt Milano is so fun to watch. He's literally like a Madden user linebacker on the field in terms of coverage and just as a pass rusher. He is so fun to watch. Maybe the most fun Buffalo Bill I've watched in a long time. At least the most fun defensive Buffalo Bill that I've watched in a long, long time. But the hamstring, his health gets in his way. He just cannot stay healthy. It's always something, I feel like, with Matt Milano. Again, great player, great value contract. Glad that he's re-signed, glad that he's locked up for the foreseeable future. But the health just isn't, it's not great. It gets in the way. Just like a couple weeks ago, people were talking about the Ravens, like when everyone was getting a torn ACL. And people were like, oh, is there a concern with the medical staff? Is there a concern with the turf? Like, what's going on? I have the same exact concerns, but specifically about Matt Milano and specifically about his hamstrings, because it's a repeating thing at this point. Like, is there a hamstring replacement surgery? Can I give him my ham? I will do it.
I will too. We'll just replace them both.
If there's any doctors in the chat, if there is hamstring replacement surgery, I will give Matt Milano my hamstrings.
No, I think we talked about this last week as one of my takeaways about Matt Milano, and I must have jinxed it because I said if Matt Milano stays healthy, he's on pace for an All-Pro season. And then what do you know? Pulls a hamstring, or we don't know the extent of the hamstring injury. But like you said, even if he does play this week, he's not going to be at full strength. And this is not the game that you don't want to have your best coverage linebacker on the field. With a team that's as explosive as the Chiefs, that has the best tight end in the NFL, a solid run game, just receivers all over the field that can make plays. But AJ Klein played well, but he's not Matt Milano. He's not going to give you the things that Matt Milano does. But he played well yesterday. I thought he played well in the preseason when he saw the field. But if Milano does not play, it's a huge blow to the defense. And if he does play, his health, I think, will hinder them a little bit. So it's very concerning. And it's just next man up for the Bills. You obviously hate to see it, but this is a team that you can't just make excuses and continue to say, oh, well, if we had this player, injuries happen and it sucks, but you gotta hope AJ Klein can be that guy to step up.
Yeah, it's just, 5 hamstring injuries in 5 years. I don't know. It's been 5 years, right? Yeah, he's in year 5.
Yeah.
It's odd. It's strange.
Right.
Like, I think it's annoying. I can't imagine how he feels about it. Because he's a fit dude in very good shape. I'm sure he doesn't understand it either. Just like, why is it always my hamstrings that are consistently getting pulled? I don't get it. But again, Matt, I'm offering you my hamstrings. You can have them. If you can figure out a way to switch, we can make the switch. So I think that wraps up Texans preview. I said at the top of the show that the Kansas City preview may take up half the show. Doesn't look like it's going to do that, but we will do a brief Kansas City preview here. Rob, they are 2-2, bottom of their division as of right now, I do believe, which is shocking. Lost to LA, lost to Baltimore. And I wrote down here that the Philly game was kind of close. It wasn't. It really wasn't that close. But that being said, Kansas City looks like a beatable team this year. The defense is suspect. The defense has not been great. So do you think this can be the week? I don't want to spoil your hot take here, but do you think this could be the game where Buffalo finally arrives on the national scene and shows the world that, yes, we are in the same tier as the Chiefs?
Right. And I think the Bills are in that tier, but they just haven't been able to beat them yet. And I know that sounds strange to say that when you're 0-2 against a team that you're the same level, but I think that when you look at the positions that they have, like on the field, depth charts side by side, I think they match up very well with each other. And this year, the Bills have the defense. We said that last year in the playoffs that their defense was playing lights out and they got smoked. So it remains to be seen, but I think you can be a lot more confident in the defense that we've seen so far through 4 games, including the loss. They've just been on fire. And I think that overall, this is the time to beat the Chiefs. They don't look like they have it all together yet. They're struggling to defend the run. Their defense is getting gashed through the air as well. But then Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill, you saw the performance he had yesterday. Travis Kelce's Travis Kelce. So these guys can play. They got a better offensive line than they did a year ago. So we're going to need to see if the Bills can get some pass rush on Mahomes. But it's going to be a great game. And in prime time, all eyes will be on this game for sure. It's probably the biggest game of the season for seeding in the playoffs and just the hype surrounding it, the magnitude of the quarterbacks. But I do think that the Bills are capable of beating the Chiefs. And I'm way more confident in that now than I was a month ago.
Yes, potential playoff seeding implications in this game, because if Buffalo wins, I think they have a 2-game advantage over Kansas City, and then the
tiebreaker.
Right, then the tiebreaker. So if Buffalo can take care of business for the rest of the season, that puts them in really good position to have home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs, to be the number 1 seed, at least throughout the entire AFC playoffs. And then if they do have to play the Chiefs again, it will be at Highmark Stadium. So very big game this week for this week, and also long-term what it could mean for the rest of the season. So Chiefs look beatable, but I don't know. I don't think I can say with confidence, like you can apparently in a couple minutes, that the Bills will beat the Chiefs this week. I don't know if I can do that. They look really good, and the Chiefs look beatable, but I have to see it to believe it. Or as Patrick Mahomes said, I'll believe it when I see it. No, I'll see it. What did he say? He messed it up.
So I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah, I'll see it when I believe it. So moving into the hot take segment, Rob, I have the hottest of takes this week, maybe the hottest yet. The people are going to love it. The people are finally going to say that, Kyle had a good hot take, but we'll start with you. What is your hot take for this week?
My hot take, Bills beat the Chiefs Sunday Night Football at Arrowhead. It's time. They played twice, lost both games. It's time. Josh Allen's going to go into Arrowhead on Sunday Night Football, and they're going to win. It's going to be close, but I think Josh Allen leads a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter to knock off the Super Bowl champion Chiefs.
Fourth quarter Josh is back?
Fourth quarter Josh.
I love that Josh Allen went from being known for making fourth quarter comebacks to not having to play in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
A very funny character development, which speaks to the talent of the team. As I said, I don't know if I can confidently say that, but I will say this, and I will explain why it's a hot take. Roman's already doubting my my ability to give.
Welcome aboard, Roman.
My hot take is that, oh God, no. The Buffalo Bills get 4 sacks on Patrick Mahomes. Let me tell you why it's a hot take. Last game that they played, they could not generate pressure, which is a big reason why the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game, which is a big reason why Tennessee beat them in the did I say Tennessee? Why Tampa Bay beat them in the Super Bowl. They got pressure on Mahomes, hurried Mahomes, and that really it decided the Buffalo Bills offseason strategy. Go out there and get pass rushers, so the next time that you face Mahomes, the next time that you face the Chiefs, you can consistently get pressure. Few teams have been able to consistently get pressure on Mahomes this season. He's only been sacked 5 times, same number as Allen. That is the 28th fewest amongst quarterbacks. No. Yes, he's 28th in sacks, which means he hasn't been sacked a lot. I don't know if I said that correctly, but he hasn't been sacked a lot. So before the people say, bad take, Kyle, not hot at all, I am saying that Patrick Mahomes is going to be sacked 4 times in one game when he's only been sacked 5 times in 4 games. If that's not a hot take, I don't know what is. I'm saying that, Patrick Mahomes is going to be sacked nearly the same amount of times in one game as he has in 4. Crazy take. One of the hottest maybe ever. I don't know. People are talking. But I do think that the Bills' offseason moves, the offseason strategy is going to be evident, and it's going to pay off this week as the Bills consistently get pressure on Mahomes. And if they can do that, they will maybe get a victory. Roman, thank you. Thank you, Roman. This hot take was for you. Trey Ellis writes, y'all think I'm in the comments for nothing. I've been reading your comments. I've been reading your comments. Nicholas Fody writes, wow, nice chat. Or nice. I thought it was nice chat. I thought he was complimenting the chat. Well, nice stat. I don't know what
nice stat, Kyle.
I did have a stat.
You did.
See, I was just so laser focused on getting all that information out that if you asked me to repeat myself, I'd be like, I don't even know what I talked about.
No. You were very underwhelming for our loyal viewers in the last few weeks. So I'm glad you got a good stat for them today. So.
Hey, as I said earlier, man, the people come here for my stats. The people know that I put in the work, I put in the research, and I come out with the best stats. So that's what the people love. So, Rob, does that wrap up our? I think that wraps up the show.
Sure does.
According to our lineup, that wraps up the show. I'd like to thank each and every one of the people in the chat for listening. And if you're listening to this afterwards on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, thank you. We appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel or to the Cover One Roundup podcast feed on iTunes. Leave a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated, or an honest review, whichever you feel like doing. What else? Subscribe to Cover One Premium. There you can get access to our premium content. You also get access to the Cover One Premium Slack, where Rob and I are sometimes. And there are hundreds of Bills fans in there consistently talking to one another. Good jokes, good times there in the Cover One Slack. Eric does some great film breakdowns in the Slack. Great value. Cover One Premium. Look into that if you're interested. Make sure to follow Cover One on Twitter. I think it's at Cover One. We're on TikTok now. We're on Instagram, which was down all day. But if Instagram's back up, make sure to follow us there. Just follow us on all social media platforms. Make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy promo code Cover One. Rob, anything else?
Nope, that's it. Definitely just subscribe to Cover One Premium. We've got awesome stuff there, and the Slack is always going off on the game days. Really 24/7 fantasy football, NFL, Buffalo Bills talk. $5 a month, $40 for the year. Make your choice. You can't get a better value anywhere else. So subscribe today.
Trey Ellis writes, #build a dome. I'm glad. I don't know. He probably had that opinion going into this podcast, but if he didn't, I converted him already. all the people are listening to what I have to say. So make sure to follow Rob on Twitter. Rob, what is your Twitter?
You follow me at RobQuinn619.
Make sure to follow me on Twitter if you want to, at Kyle Silagyi. I have to find the stink buck and take it outside. So wish me luck. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.